So today I wanted to talk to you about when do you absolutely have to disqualify a tender? Interesting question. Has some significant flow-on consequences. G'day everyone, Simon Zarifa here from Shrewd. We provide commercial support to the Commonwealth to help the Commonwealth successfully deliver value for money projects. So when are the circumstances that you absolutely have to disqualify a tender? Okay, so there's two main reasons or two main criteria when you absolutely have to dismiss or not evaluate a tender. And they are, one, when the evaluation plan says so, and secondly, if a tender is late and Division 2 of the CPRs applies. So let's just go through those individually. So the first one is if the evaluation plan says that you have to disqualify and not evaluate a tender in certain circumstances, then you must comply with your evaluation plan. So generally, your evaluation plan will set out minimum content and form requirements. Usually they will be things like the tender must be in English. You may have a minimum font size, even though that's not so crucial, but usually it'll just say your tender response has to be in English. So obviously, if someone lodges a tender response in another language, then that would be grounds to disqualify the tender because it doesn't comply with the minimum content requirements set out in the evaluation plan. The second thing is your evaluation plan may actually have mandatory criteria. And as the title suggests with the word mandatory, that's a big clue. They are criteria that a tenderer must comply with to have their tender proceed to evaluation. So if your evaluation plan sets out mandatory criteria and your tenderer does not meet those mandatory criteria, then those are grounds, or that would be one ground to disqualify and not evaluate the tender. The other reason is late, and I've put potentially in here because your evaluation plan may say that if a tender is late, and it's from no fault of the agency, but the tender is late solely due to a reason or the tender's fault, then that could be grounds to disqualify the tender, but that will depend on what your evaluation plan says. Now, because the ramifications of disqualifying a tender are quite profound, at least for the tenderer, because basically all their effort in preparing the tender is now wasted, generally it's a good idea to go and seek legal or probity advice on that. So basically you would form an opinion that we believe tender X should be disqualified because it breached blah, i.e. maybe it was late, maybe it didn't meet the mandatory criteria, or it didn't meet the minimum form and content requirements set out in the evaluation plan. And then just get your probity advisor and or legal advisor to just confirm that, just so relevant butts are covered. Because as I say, it does have significant flow-on effects for the tenderer and they could get quite upset. There is another reason. So I did say back here there were two main reasons why you would disqualify a tender. Reasons one is what's set out in the evaluation plan, and then reason two is if a tender is late. Now, if Division 2 applies, so Division 2 basically applies to all tenders that are over $80,000. Now, just remember here that Division 2 does not apply to panel procurements. So if you're procuring goods or services from a panel, even if they're over 80K, then Division 2 does not apply. But back on point, let's say you're going out to market an open tender approach, Division 2 applies. If someone is late, as in a tenderer lodges their response late, then according to 10.28 in the CPRs, and these are current as at May 2022, according to the CPRs, then late submissions must not be accepted unless obviously it's a mishandling fault of the relevant entity. So if a tenderer submits a tender response and it is late and Division 2 applies, then forget what your evaluation plan says, even though I'm sure it would say this anyway, but basically you cannot evaluate it and you have to disqualify it. So the two main reasons why, just summing this up really quickly, the two main reasons why you have to disqualify a tender is if your evaluation plan says that you will, if certain events occur, and the other reason is that if the tender response is late and Division 2 applies to your tender, then boom, it's gone. Hope that helps. If you have any questions, feel free to get in touch. Simon at shrewd.com.au or 1-800-SHREWD, which is 1-800-747-393. Thank you.